Okay, cool. Yeah, so welcome TBO. My name is Ghazi. I am going to explain some of the system that we've been working on for using RP Redux to kind of integrate with the new Funcom sorcery and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk about things like where it's at the moment and the kinds of things. Oh, we're all gonna get disconnected, aren't we? And the kinds of things that that are in there now, the kinds of things that you can do with it, the room for development and stuff like that. Cool. Let's jump on into it. Oh no. Hold on. Let me just resize my screen. Okay, cool. Okay, and if you're watching this after the fact, then okay, cool. Just want to minimize this for a sec. If you're watching this after the fact, then yeah, hopefully this will clarify some questions. I'll try and go through things relatively quickly but thoroughly, and then yeah, we can kind of reconvene and kind of like see how we feel about sorcery in general, how it should work on TBO specifically, and yeah, go from there. All right. So first thing, we're gonna start with an overview. So previously, before this, we had done special characters. The kind of general thing was that you would submit, a bit of your background, a bit of how you hope to use sorcery or special abilities in your RP and generate RP from that. Which is great. And then you would kind of like pick like 5 abilities, more or less, or up to 5 abilities. I don't know. They kind of varied a lot. I mean, for a time, I was kind of like going through all those applications and stuff. And yeah, I was just noticing there was like a huge discrepancy in terms of like the kinds of abilities that people would have. And, that's fine. Like some people are minor users of sorcery and what have you. And, but like, it's just that like, because you're doing it all up front and you're like, okay, these are all the things I ever want to be able to do. It's not great for like developing plots and things like that. That was generally at least my feeling around it. You would have, some kind of like minor abilities with like some like illusions or lights and magic and stuff, and then you would have other like sort of like plot shaping, like mass destruction or like a ritual curse, whatever, that kind of thing. Those are kind of like major events and stuff. So the beginning of the system, which I will try to explain, I'll go into RP Redux after, but that's only kind of like one portion of the system, and that will be the portion that ties in with some of the Funcom stuff. But basically, I wanted to introduce this idea of sort of rituals versus incantations. Now, rituals are kind of like the big plot magic. Like they're like the big things. It's like, okay, my clan is at war with this other clan, and I want to like do something cool and big and showy or whatever, something like that. Or it could be because like rituals do have a lot of flexibility in them. So say you wanted to do something like that, we would open a ticket, and together sort of with the people that you're kind of going to be doing this with, like say it's like you and the other clan, or you and the other person you want to curse or enchant or whatever it is, we would bring you guys together and we would discuss possible mechanics that make sense, that make everyone content and whatnot. So that's sort of the basis of like how you would go about performing rituals of that nature, especially where it's like adversarial or whatever, that kind of thing. Because like you want everyone to be having a good time around stuff like that. That's, I think, where like a lot of the consent is really important. And so if we discuss that all in a ticket beforehand, then we can kind of come to those conclusions. Sometimes it's not against someone else, it's not adversarial, it's just like you want to summon birds, not to single anyone out, but no, so you want to like okay, summon some, bird demons or whatever to protect you and stuff. It's like, okay, cool, that can be a thing we do. So we would need to figure out what, an appropriate cost for that, and, possible mechanics, because there should always be, like that chance of failure. And yeah, so those would be things that we would kind of discuss in a ticket, and come to some kind of conclusion that works, and that sort of thing. And yeah, so that's another type of ritual. But then, in addition to that, there are sort of like the more innocuous day-to-day rituals. And I don't want to like hold anyone up, like in terms of like RP and stuff like that. I think when I was putting this system forth or whatever, and discussing it with the rest of the team, one of the things, kind of like a good example that came up, was like it was actually Resic playing Zane with an RP that he had with Verve. This is not giving anything to like away, and no meta here. But basically it was like, sort of like proof that one of them was a necromancer and stuff, right? So the ritual, if you will, of this particular moment in the RP that they just kind of went with was like they took a dead bird and reanimated it. Now that's fairly innocuous. It's not a big thing. That's the kind of stuff, like, we're not gonna gate all uses of that. If it fits the scene, whatever, cool. Mostly we kind of like would like to hear about when these things happen, just because it's helpful for our own knowledge and things like that. So if even sometimes you can, after the fact, kind of like open a ticket and be like, oh, this thing happened, I'm like, awesome, that sounds really cool. And then maybe there's like potential that ties in with some other event or whatever, or maybe the bird comes back and tells you something, like, like there are different things that we can do from there. That's why communication, I think, is key. So that's kind of rituals, mostly done through tickets. They're more bespoke. You don't need to choose them in advance or anything like that. They're just kind of, hey, I had this idea, can we do this? So that's the rituals portion of it. And then the next part is invocations. Invocations are, more mechanical, dice-based, that sort of thing. And they are essentially automated. They have all been sort of put into RP Redux. They're tied to PC perks that you have. So RP Redux, I mean, I don't need to go into all the minutia of how RP Redux works, but essentially, I mean, you got your character sheet and everything. When you come down here to show details, you can kind of see, okay, I got a bunch of stuff right now, but I have the sorcery perk, which was actually unlocked by the PC testing, which is sort of like, I would give you, once you've been an approved special character, I would give you a perk, which would be like PC, your name, whatever. At least that's the naming scheme I'm using right now. I might change it, but and so that grants the perk of sorcery. It grants the abilities listed here. I gave myself just a smattering of them for the purpose of demonstration. And then these are things like admin stuff, just to give myself some extra mana so that, whatever, I'm jacked up and stuff. And then heavy corruption. These are modifiers that can actually, like, I mean, as you can see here, I do have corruption, and that does factor into the system, which is pretty cool. That's done through mutators, which, I don't know, I mean, I can touch on a couple of the finer details of the system. I mean, most people here, when you don't have sorcery and stuff, you will have combat mechanics here, like the attack unarmed. And I have no targets available. Maybe I need to get closer. So now, forgive me, Miranda, but I'm going to punch you. I hope that's okay. Do I have your consent to punch you? Okay, alright. That's good. So here you can modify rolls if you want or whatever. So if I just use the ability, I failed, missed. So this is kind of like again, the reason why we have Thank you for specifying Cabras. It's very important for people to know how violent I am. So yeah, so GM attacks, Marana, 4+6, yeah. So anyway, so that didn't hit, but if it did, it would have it would have done some damage, and it would have damaged her hit points, which are here. I just kind of have it set right now so that you can actually like do those, but there are also abilities to recover and you get the ability to rest when you are in shelter. You have to have shelter, and then the ability to rest will show up. But I also have medicine, so I could always try and undo the damage I did. Do I need to be closer? I don't know. I'll heal myself, but yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's like the basics of just like the general combat thing that's been in there for a long time. I don't know if people use it really. I mean, I know we kind of default to mechanical PvP and stuff like that, but is the screen not working? Is everyone else able to see? Any quick check-in, if anyone? Yeah, works. Okay, cool. It's funny, I'm reading like 5 different chats. Okay. Yeah, there's a disarm thing, which I had put in there recently as just like a thing to try out or whatever. I'm just going to quickly disarm you. That can be very disarming. So you can see, so tries to disarm, melee versus athletics, and then that was a success, and Marana's disarmed. Now that's something that, I mean, you can just kind of like run with in your RP however you like. I mean, that's the beauty of dice combat. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of dice combat. I would never, like, I don't know. Mainly I just like the narration potential in it, you know, because you're narrating this really intense scene and stuff like that. But whatever. We're not talking about combat, we're talking about sorcery. So I have an outline here. I'm going to look at that outline. Mechanical, but yeah, so you have PC perks, which will give you the abilities that you have. These are invocations. If you have sorcery, you will automatically have recover mana, which you can use periodically. Oops. I'm going to also include other ways that you can recover mana. Part of the reason why I mentioned stuff about like places of power and that sort of thing in the special characters channel, which I'll say is a little rough at the moment. I think I kind of need to give it another go through, and so I'll clean that up to make it to help explain more of it and that sort of thing. Mechanics being forced into PvP and wanting to use magic. Yeah, so magic is sorry, I'm just checking the question from Takala there. In terms of using sorcery in PvP and stuff like that, we can touch on that a little bit when we get into like sort of like the Funcom stuff, because that actually has like a mechanical component to it. But with the invocations like these, again, it's consent based still. If like I don't want to move away from consent based. I feel like that is very important. But like, you know, there may be additional options later on down the road of like potential abilities that could impact PvP. But for the time being, we got to iron the system out first and make sure that, you know, like it's not going to be infringing on anyone's, you know, like, because we have defaulted to mechanical PvP. That's kind of like how we've done things. And I still like mechanical PvP. I'm not amazing at it, spoiler, but yeah, I mean, it's still got its own, you know, merit and stuff like that. So most of the abilities that I have included here, really, I mean, they don't really impact anything until it gets into dice combat or in that time before combat. So, okay, so I'll look at, like, Evoke. This is kind of a generic ability. It's more of a template, really. Like if somebody wanted to, like, oh, I want like an ice javelin or something that I can make or whatever, that's cool within the narrative and stuff. At the moment, it would only work in a what do you call it, a dice combat scenario. And so yeah, so you could use that within a dice combat scenario, and it's I'm just taking liberties here. So I hit, and it only did one. Okay, well anyway, I think it's supposed to be a little more powerful than that. I think I rolled bad. But anyway, so like that could work in a dice combat scenario if you wanted to do that. These would be things that you would need to make sure all parties involved were okay with. Like it's like, okay, we're gonna do dice combat, cool. Also, I'm gonna use sorcery, cool. Like like just stages of consent, because you don't want to blindside somebody and like, oh, what, you have like this crazy ability that instant kills people in PvP or dice combat or whatever. So, okay, so that's one example. Also, all these things have cooldowns. That's one thing. But then, so the other thing would be like, say, something like command. Now, enchantment is kind of one of the, when it comes to like invocations and stuff like that, they the enchantment ones are, I mean, they have the potential to be, I mean, they can be disruptive, stuff like that. In all cases, like, I mean, consent always, but like especially with enchantment, I don't know. Like, so now something like command, how this would work, would be, so you would need to use this in sort of the RP, I guess, leading up to PvP or something like that, right? So if you were to cast command in that time leading up to it, you could do something like somebody, okay, pulls a sword on you or something like that, and the way that command works, which is not one that's really out there at the moment, I'm just throwing that out there, but like, so your comment is basically the 2-word command that you're allowed. Sorry, yeah, the rules for these things should show up as oh, maybe I don't have that one written in. Okay, but yeah, when I give out these abilities, I make sure that people know how to use them properly and stuff. But you would put in your 2-word command here, so like drop it, and then use the ability. So now we have GM attempts to command Morana. 2-word command, drop it. Sorcerer versus willpower. And then here's the roll. It was successful. GM has lost 2 mana. That part is actually private. You don't. You only see that as the person casting, which I need to up my mana. And then also the consumed item. So yeah. So most of these things also have consumable material components. They're not usually anything too crazy. I mean, with the case of blue crystal, it is actually a thing that I'm fairly certain is not widely available, and so therefore there would be a bit of a, like, that's something that's like, okay, you need to have a certain amount or whatever. But other stuff is a little more general, like, you need some ash and salt and whatever, something like that. The main thing kind of there being just that, like, if a sorcerer is like stripped of their possessions and stuff like that, they cannot cast those spells, and those are kind of built into, so you can see like the requirements there for, like brimstone, volatile gland. I mean, it's, so these are some of the requirements. So anyway, so all that to say that it doesn't override anything PvP wise yet at the moment. There is potential down the road for other things that maybe would allow someone to like escape combat or something like that. But don't hold me to that. I need to, like, these are all things that I need to kind of like make sure that everybody's on board with and stuff like that as we go. So, yeah, in general, the other thing, I guess, sorry, I'm looking at my outline here. I was going to mention schools, but that's just kind of general. I think that's listed in the special characters channel, but you kind of focus on different schools and whatnot. And so yeah, I guess some of the other things I can show off here just briefly. So like divination has like a couple of things that are like cast chance to be able to reroll a failed skill check other than combat or sorcery. Take the new roll. Use that. So yeah, that has its own check associated with it. Most things will have a check to be able to make sure that you accomplish them. It may be kind of low, but like at least there's a chance that it might not go off or whatever. So yeah, and all of these things can be tweaked, which is great. Another question: sorcerer study more than one school? Yes. In general, when people are creating their characters in the application process, they would usually pick a primary and secondary, or focus on like a primary. Like I want to be like an illusionist. That's like my thing, and so that would be taken into account in terms of what invocations you were given, and also like to start or whatever, and along the way, and also in rituals and things like that. Because if you focus in that school, you're going to be, better at it than someone else who, split their talents a little bit. So that's basically just like you would pick a primary and secondary school. Things can change over time. Mostly things can change, yeah, that's like a starting point, and then like things can change over time through RP and through plots and through various things. So those are all things we're open to. That's all kind of the province of like opening a special character ticket, which are used for rituals like I was talking about at the beginning, as well as other progression things that you want to do. Say you want to like make a new invocation, and this is a thing I did with a lot of the existing characters that people that were being brought from the old system sort of into the new system. I was trying to find abilities and stuff like that would fit with their pre-existing abilities. I think I was able to do an okay job and kind of like give people some custom ones. Most of those custom ones aren't here just because I don't want to like show off people's secret invocations, whatever. But the thing about that though is that when these things are cast, the rules are built into them. So when you use it, I don't flavor the text here very much or whatever. Like that I leave to the sorcerer. That's kind of like up to them. So you would do your like whole narration, weaving hands through the air and mode of possibility, whatever, and then you roll the thing, and it kind of basically just tells you what the rules are, and it's like, oh, they get to re-roll, okay, fair enough, and then because it's like inputted and it's automated, you can trust those are the rules, and yeah, so I got a little off topic. What was I saying? Oops. I was talking about casting spells and specialized invocations and stuff like that. Quick question. Talking about progression, is there a thing like time limit or XP? Not especially. It's more just that we kind of want to like. We want to be able to work together on to push plots and stuff like that. Like your plots too. Wherever it connects with some of our like overarching meta plots, like cool, that's awesome. And if you want to be involved with that, that's cool. But you like just your own plots, whatever it is you want to do. Like you're building a sorcerer, and okay, you've got a clan of people that are like worshiping you or something like that. It's like, okay, cool, that's awesome. Not saying that you have to have a clan of worshipers in order to get more spells. It's just that like we want to see that you're generating RP, however that happens. In some cases, we may ask for things like logs of the RP and that kind of thing, just to kind of like show us like what you're doing with like rituals or different things like that, because that gives us a sense of like your character and where you're sort of taking your character, and like how you conduct these things. And if we see that like, oh, this is cool, this is a really good story, whatever, we'll give you more abilities to further that story, kind of thing, right? And again, we're still only talking about the RP Redux exclusive invocations at the moment. So I think I'm going to transition here to talking about how this ties in with the Funcom stuff. And I will do that by, okay, wait. Okay, so I filled my inventory with a bunch of scrolls here, which you can purchase for an amount near here. But, okay, what do I got? Let's unequip that for a sec. Let's just do this. Do this to start. Okay, you can only have 3 equipped runes. I mean, that number can change or whatever, but yeah, so you can have 3 equipped runes at a time. Now, runes is honestly just a placeholder. It doesn't actually mean runes. It's just what RP Redux calls them. But basically, they are items. They have to be in your inventory, wherever. So like these ones are all here. So these are kind of like the scrolls that you will begin your journey into learning these sorceries with or whatever. And again, I know other questions have come up about like, you know, what about characters that don't, that are more like shamanistic or, you know, practice in different ways. That's all possible too. That would be more something we would sort out in the character creation process when we are kind of doling out abilities. But this was just like a way that like we can kind of put it out there into the world, and you know, you can discover these scrolls and potentially study them and stuff like that. But okay, so say you find a Scroll of Illusion 1. That would give you the ability to study Scroll of Illusion 1. And so select, let me see. Okay, so let's just look at that. So what happened? Okay, GM spends time studying the scroll. Success. The mysteries of the scroll become clear. You have only to speak the words. And then this stuff is the private stuff that only you see. So it's GM lost 1 Scroll of Illusion 1, so it removes it from your inventory. GM receives 1 Scroll of Imbue Wisp, and then use the Scroll of Imbue Wisp to cast the spell. So I had a whole bunch of them in here already, so but it's just this one here. So yeah, that's kind of your basic Illusion 1. So you would need to pass the check in order to be able to do that, but once you do, then cool, you have it. But now, so that's basically, that would be the extent of it for a non-sorcerer, right? You would study the scroll, sort of translate it, which, you know, you can make your own RP out of that however, you know, you want. And then now you have this consumable scroll that you can use off your hotbar easily enough and cast the spell. Most of the spells have already been put into it. I will say that Call of Nergal, for all you bat flyers out there, that one has been a little finicky, so I'll have to see if there's another way to make that one work. But and then actually Icebridge has also given me a little bit of trouble, but other than that, most of them are working. I haven't added them all to RP Redux yet. There's a few still that need to be set up to be able to be learned and stuff like that. But so just quickly though, okay, I'll just unequip these just for simplicity. But okay, so now I have the Scroll of Imbue Wisp. Now, as a practitioner of sorcery, since I do have the sorcery, skill, I now have, the option to learn Imbue Wisp. So, selecting that, I can study, and I've fucked it up. So yeah, I studied my hardest, and I just couldn't learn it. Just couldn't do it. There is a cooldown on that. And yeah, it's 5 minutes, but I can just really quickly do one of these. Reset cooldowns. Yeah, so now, try again, and don't embarrass me. There it is. Spends, wait, I should, Yeah, okay, so that was the last one, right. GM spends time studying the scroll. Success. GM has lost one scroll of Imbue Wisp, which is one of the consumable ones here, but receives cast Imbue Wisp. So now, when I go to my thing here, you can see that I now have cast Imbue Wisp. Now what that does, it only has a requirement of 1 mana at the moment. Mana is a stat. It's made up of some things. Yeah, it's made up of... I mean, I have a whole bunch of it because that's how I set things up. But yeah, there's an equation, and it kind of takes, I think, some higher of a certain stat. I could get into it. But basically, I think it's like intelligence or wisdom, whichever you're kind of more focused towards or whatever. It will take that and add it to something else and then a base number. So anyway, and then it kind of works out that I think most sorcerers kind of end up around 6, maybe 6, 7, 8. I don't know. I think, yeah, something like that. Mana. So yeah, and then you can regenerate mana in the way that I mentioned before, but I also aim to kind of create other ways to do that. So yeah, so cast Imbue Wisp now, what that will do, when I use that ability, it just kind of cast Imbue Wisp, receive 1 scroll of Imbue Wisp. And then that would just, I would use that. It kind of tells you to use it immediately, so you would use it in that scene. Do the spells, whether learned or from the scroll. Work with the Funcom corruption, right. For example, normal sorcery, certain level corrupt, right, okay. Yeah, so in terms of how it interacts with corruption, there's, yes, sort of, totally. I mean, but also that is a bit of a work in progress in terms of finding the right balance. But there's a lot that can be done in that regard. As I mentioned, sort of when I was doing this before, when you look down at the bottom of your dice sheet and you go show more, you come down here. Currently, I have heavy corruption, which, yeah, because I'm like halfway. So yeah, with heavy corruption, there is actually a modifier that applies. That's already a thing that I've built into it. These things can all be changed because they're things that I've kind of put in there. There's a lot of like levers to tweak and balance and stuff like that, and I feel like that's just kind of going to be an ongoing thing. And yeah, I guess part of the reason too why I kind of want to get this system kind of in place is because this gives us a chance to try these things out and like make the system better, so that, you know, by the time next season rolls around, you know, the system is actually like better. It's stress tested. People like, I'd be like, oh, I don't like the way that this thing works, whatever. We can tweak it. So that said, now with heavy corruption, you could make it so that you can only cast a certain spell if you have heavy corruption, right? You can set those up because there's oh, what's a good example? I'm not sure if you're corrupt right now, Marana, but if you're not, just make sure I'm up in here. No, okay. Oh no, it doesn't even say that. Okay, so wait, I think it was with one of the healing things. There are target conditions. Oh, right. So, yeah. So you are a target because you're not corrupted. Okay. I'm going to give you corruption and I'm going to take it off just to kind of show. Don't worry. I will put it back. But I think you need to have like maybe... Oh, I forget what the numbers are here. What's that do? Okay, so you should be a bit corrupt now. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay, not corrupt enough. Okay, hold on. Oops. Let's just see if I can corrupt you a little bit more here just for the people. Okay, that's probably too much. Is that like halfway? 500? I forget. I promise I will heal you back to full after this. But 30%? Huh, and I can still target you. Hold on. a little bit of behind the scenes action here. Abilities, there are a lot of them. Maybe I'm thinking of a different ability actually that had that. Let's see, cast. Nope. Heal, nope. Remove toxin, nope. Oh, that one doesn't. There was one. I know. Anyway, I put it as like one of the requirements. So it's like okay, so you can put target conditions. Oh, and if corruption is less than a value of 20, yeah, DPL should be include if corruption is less than 20. So not 100% sure. I gotta double check that, but I think it shouldn't allow you to be targeted by it, and yet it did. Okay, well, I gotta look into that. Iron it out. Always technical difficulties in the middle of a presentation. But anyway, so all that to say that you can set conditions like that on targets, and it knows if you are corrupted thanks to mutators and stuff like that, which are the same thing that, for instance, just to kind of go back to the combat system here for a second, when I pull this out and I am holding a weapon, and I just go over to the combat, you can see now that attack melee shows up. That is because it knows that I am holding a two-handed weapon, which is not a finesse weapon. If I was holding a finesse weapon, it would give me the option to do a finesse attack. And then also, in addition to that, your armor class is affected. So like it knows like that you are in medium armor or whatever at the moment. So yeah, that's all through mutators, and those things can affect whether or not you can cast an ability on a person, or yeah, you can also set those requirements for either the target or the caster. So yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility there. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, hopefully that's good. If you have more questions or follow-ups, let me know. But that's kind of how it factors in. Now there are additional features within the new system, and I will kind of like touch on those because they're like, some of them are, I mean, yeah, it's like some of them I totally intend to allow, but also some of them kind of only make sense for certain kinds of things. Okay, so Thaumaturgy bench, I mean, I don't think we're doing like weapon illusions and stuff like that, because we have transmogs and stuff like that, so it's not really an issue. Thaumaturgy bench, other than that, is used to upgrade your tome, which is how you get the spells, so again, it doesn't really factor into the system. If there's other things that people can think of that are functionality or whatever based on those things, let me know. There might be a couple other things, but I think mostly it all sort of, that's how the system gets put forward. I mean, there's cool animations and stuff like that too, and I could probably bring those over without the functionality. I just need to bust into DevKit a little more. Yeah, Sacrificial Stone, I think that'll be a popular one because it's fun to string people up and drain them of their blood. I mean, for a certain kind of character. And so, yeah. The Sacrificial Stone, I would like to bring that over. So it may get tied in with Soul Essences. At the moment, we've only made Soul Essences available through the dungeons and stuff like that. But yeah, if you want to corrupt your perks and stuff. Do I have Soul Essences? Is that what it is? I didn't think I actually had any in my inventory, though. I gotta double check that. Anyway. Yeah, so staff be required? Oh, a staff, like the one that you got there. There may be a future implementation of this that is a little different. Consumables was kind of, I mean, it made sense, and it was like an easy way to integrate it. But once I pick apart the way that Funcom gives you the spells, I can potentially enable people to cast it using the existing, like, you use the staff and you choose the stones and stuff like that. And then spells could be allotted bit by bit. The main thing is just, not to get too technical, but like in the dev kit, they're not as simple as just feats. Like, you get feats for them, but in addition to that, there's also a spell list. And so it's hard to kind of isolate those things. I'd be open to an implementation that actually allows for that. But at the moment, no, it doesn't require a staff or anything. But it could. That's an easy enough implementation. I could just have it so that, again, like I said with the hammer, I don't know that I have I have a staff here. So I could just make it so that, it's like you need to pull that out, and, that will trigger a mutator that will say that you are holding a staff, and you need to be holding the staff in order to cast that spell. That's an option. At the moment, also with them being consumables, there's not like a direct way to ensure, I'm teaching you the exploits, there's not a direct way to ensure that, when you receive that, because like the casting ability just kind of gives you, like this here, just kind of gives you the scroll, and then you have the scroll, and in theory you don't have to cast it. You could stock up. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, but we may implement a thing at some point where they have a decay, so that you would have to use it within a certain time. That's a possibility. I don't know. For the time being, I'm not too overly concerned with something like that, because it could always be that, a sorcerer transcribes a scroll for someone and hands it off to someone, whatever. There are different options there. I trust you guys as RP. But yeah. Oh, and then other benches and stuff. Circle of Power, that is more so for summoning demons and some of that fancy armor stuff or whatever. I totally hope to make those things available, but maybe they would be things that would be a bit more ritualistic or something. Maybe you would have we could do the placeable. We could have it so that you could have the Stone of Power in your, den of sorcery, whatever, and then it could be used at certain points. But there are also a lot of other options in terms of summoning that I would really like to get into. Because for instance, I have all the DMT assets, Dungeon Master Tools assets that I've been kind of selectively adding to some of our mods. And some of those include a bunch of NPCs that are monster NPCs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool options for summoning at some point, because I feel like thralls will play a much larger role in things going forward. That just kind of seems like how the direction that Funcom's going. So yeah. Anyway, in terms of choosing what powers we wish to have, still require it to be tied to established lore powers. So yes, it will. That's again part of the what do you call it? Special characters submission process. You would come to us with, okay, here's my idea for my character and stuff like that. And then you could pitch ideas for invocations that you think would fit with your character. We will have a new role called Archivists, who hopefully, some of you guys will get a chance to join that team. And they will go over some of these and try and just make sure that these things are in line with lore. And they'll evaluate from both a lore perspective and a mechanical perspective, because we want to make sure the mechanics of these things work well, and also aren't unimmersive, whatever. So in short, yes, but it's kind of, again, case by case as you guys pitch ideas to us and stuff. And it's the same with invocations. If you pitch invocation ideas to us, then cool. In terms of the Funcom stuff, though, at the moment I've just made them accessible via scrolls, which, we could move away from that direction, but it's just that I know everybody was chomping at the bit to, get these things and get them out there and stuff. So, they could be a more rare thing that you only find occasionally, or they could be in a shop. There's different options here. I think that this is a good time to explore those options and see what we want to do and the availability we want to have of them and that sort of thing. So Limit on special character apps. Yep. I don't know what though. I mean, at the moment, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be. Because like even out of the characters that we did transfer over, I'm not 100% sure, and some of them may have left. So, and then it's like a what do you call it? A requirement. Yeah, it's like what's the server population versus percentage wise and stuff. So I couldn't make a call on exactly what that's going to be, but yeah, we're not going to make everybody sorcerers. That would be a little crazy. But activity requirements. So that would be like like remaining active and stuff. I mean, not in a stringent kind of like if you don't use this many things or whatever, we're gonna kick you out. But like it does kind of suck to have somebody using up a spot when there's other people that want to get in but can't. But we'll take these things into account. We gotta kind of like feel it out really. I couldn't comment on hard limits or hard requirements, but we do hope that by giving more power to players, that they are incentivized to be more active and to generate plots and to maybe stir conflict, because we do need ways to incentivize conflict, and I think that the sorcery system could be a way to do that. We won't push people towards it, but that is something that hey, if we think that this could stir up a good plot and we can get both sides involved, I think that's a big thing too, is talking with different folks and stuff like that. Actual logins. I mean, if you're just logging in every now and again just to save a build, I mean, I don't know that I would take sorcery away, but I mean, I don't know, maybe that would be something where if you ask to have more power, it might be kind of oh, okay, are you playing though? I don't know. It might be something like that. I don't know. Most sorcerers should be leaning towards selfish and chasing some kind of goal. Yeah. So I mean, that's one of the things I think that we outlined in the new sheet, which I haven't really publicized yet, but the new special character application. Some of the things we ask about are what are your goals? What are your flaws? Things like that. These are things that we want to really, I don't know, make people think about and that sort of thing, because I feel like that creates thick plot and drama and whatever, that sort of thing. And then also just a couple of last things on the benches and stuff. Transportory Stone, that's a thing we can look at some point. It's pretty cool. I mean, if nothing else, for the visuals and stuff. I already kind of actually just today I took a quick look at the blueprints for these things and whatnot in DevKit. I can make I kind of made some dummy versions, and I'm gonna kind of go through and kind of check the functionality and see what maybe I can detach or something, and then maybe make these things available more as props to start, but then potentially add functionality later. And then Shallow Grave is cool for necromancers. It's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, we'll try and make that available as soon as we can. But I mean, in the meantime, there's always Army of Dead. Uh-oh. Sorry, they're gonna attack you. Sorry, I should have asked for consent, Marana. I just got carried away. I don't know where they're gonna go. I think they might be... Let's hope they're not running amok in Maroon. I don't know if I can smash them for you, but we'll see. I think they're probably... yeah, I tried them up on an elevation like this before, and they seem to kind of go toward the... yeah, I don't actually know where they are. Yeah, so be advised. Undead and Maroon, perhaps. I'm not sure. I can't see too much right now. Maybe if I made a wisp. Oh boy. Okay. Anyway, I'm getting carried away there. But yeah. So more first taking your sorcery spot. Someone else would actively use. I have a question. If we do go ahead with the system, what is the time frame for opening it up? Not for spells. but for actual special characters. Yeah. I think one of the few questions I had come through in the forums beforehand was mostly just about that and like time frames and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think I've kind of shown you roughly what is available at the moment. I didn't go into like all of the scrolls that are available, but many of them are available, and a few more still kind of need to be added, maybe like to be set up with the whole like study scroll, learn ability, whatever. So yeah, I just got to set up a few more of those. But in terms of special character rollout and stuff like that, I mean, if all's good and people are, you know, vibing with the system and stuff, I think we can probably reopen them like pretty soon. I wanted to kind of like just get the team on board, make sure that I'm training people, like some of the new folks, provided they're still interested and happy to, you know, look through these applications with me, then we can kind of look through those together. And so yeah, so we could kind of open it up and process them as quickly as possible. Yeah, because like if because I can, if we don't get into the weeds of like invocations and like custom things like that, we can do this a lot quicker. Like I can be like, okay, you've got your perk for your character. It gives you sorcery, so now when you know get the spells and stuff, you can learn them or whatever. So it gives you that part already to begin with. If there are maybe some invocations that like out of the just like basic ones that are in that channel that you want to take, then we can potentially do that. If there are more custom things, then that might take a little bit, but we can get you approved and get you your perk and all that kind of stuff like sooner. And then work on invocations or whatever for custom things. So yeah, that could go fairly quickly. And then yeah, beyond that, like some of the things I was mentioning with the benches might take a little bit, but yeah. If it's an activity requirement, take into account both the player's ability to commit to RP and the current server population. And if there are any active plots. Yeah, I mean, in general, we'll take that stuff into account. Rolegged. Honestly, I don't know how to say your name. Rolegged? Roleg? I don't know. But it'll take into account, obviously, like there's a lot of factors. It would be kind of too hard to say at the moment. The other thing, too, is that we might, like, gradually introduce, you know, like characters, like there'll potentially be a waiting list or whatever, maybe too, like maybe you didn't, you know, get in this round just yet, but like, okay, as the server picks up and stuff like that, it's like, okay, I think we can let a few more sorcerers in and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like penalize anybody if they, you know, aren't able to be around for specific things. But, you know, we'll just be keeping an eye on it and kind of like, okay, is this sorcerer generating plot? Do we need some, you know, some more, some fresh blood in there or something? Like this person's been wanting to like do this thing for a bit, and you know, stuff like that. These are just the decisions we got to make day to day. So, if progression is tied to how much RP you provide, what happens if those are more shut in or not as involved? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you're just RPing like by yourself, I mean. But the thing is, I mean, like, it's not like we're going to necessarily know that in advance either, so it's not something we could really make a judgment call on, and it's not like we know how many different people you RP with or whatever, but, like, for instance, tickets would be one way that we would know, because as things come up, it's like, hey, I've been doing this plot with so-and-so, even if it's just, like, you and one other person, whatever, something like that. I've been running this plot with so-and-so and, like, kind of, like, doing that. We will always encourage people to involve other people wherever possible. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're playing a sorcerer, sure, there's risks and stuff, but, like, I don't know. I don't think anybody, especially on TBO, because we're not, I don't know. I don't feel like, you know, it's like the pitchfork wielding, you know, like, torches kind of thing. Like, you know, if some baddie shows up and they're all like, whoa, I'm going to kill everyone, then, yeah, you know, tend to get, like, a lot of people together and trying to kill them or whatever, but like, Yeah, like I mean, in general, like a sorcerer, like of some ability, and even that's the thing too. You can run plots without revealing that. Like keep it to yourself, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, maybe you're subtly doing a thing, or maybe you're subtly doing it ICly, but like OOCly working with the person that you're like subtly manipulating or something. I don't know, like whatever it is. There's so many different plots that you could run. If we see that you're doing a lot of these things, we will aid you with progression as the best we can. So. About schools, are you limited to? At the moment, the way that so Cell's question about schools magic. At the moment, we haven't tied these the new Funcom spells. We haven't tied those to specialization at the moment. I would like to do that with some of the higher level ones, for instance. For instance, I think it's a little odd for like any sorcerer, like an illusionist or something, to like be doing Army of the Dead. But yeah, that may be a thing that gets kind of worked in maybe at some point. I don't know, but not at the moment. At the moment, I think people just want to try it out. So like, I'm totally fine with that. And I would encourage people to, if it doesn't make sense for your character, don't cast a spell. It doesn't really make sense. Sorcerers act as drivers of RP, not bystanders. I would agree. Yeah. All well until people don't want to interact with a scary witch. Yeah, I mean, these things happen. Yeah, I mean, but then I don't know, talk with us and see if maybe there's some way we can, I don't know, drum something up. Because I think deep down, like, even if, like, it depends on how you play your character, I guess. Because like you could, I guess, scare everyone away so that they don't want to, RP with you. But like I mean, even if you're scary ICly, I think OOCly, it's still cool to interact with that person. So like, maybe there's something we can do there to kind of drum up some interest or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. People interacting with baddies. It's good for conflict, stuff like that. Mechanical consequences of more power accumulating. Yes. Use beyond base game corruptions. Yeah. So these are all things that we are kind of like investigating. Because so there are some secret stats. There are like some behind the scenes stats, and I haven't done a ton with them yet, but basically like, so when you use abilities in particular, I will just, this is a little peek behind the curtains, but when you use some of the like necromancy stuff, like the heavy necromancy stuff, in particular Army of the Dead, I also realized that little known fact, necromancy 3 is set up actually as darkness, which is, I mean, in part, that was because thematically that it was located in the crypt and stuff like that, but that could just as easily maybe be illusion, although it does have, like, spider webs and stuff like that. So, anyway, for now, it's set up as Necromancy 3. That's not a major issue or whatever. But if you get into, like, summoning Army of the Dead or whatever, like, that's full-blown Necromancer. So what I'm doing for the moment is I am tracking with variables that I put on your character, just kind of like how much you're doing that. And I'm not saying I'm going to, like, I don't know, be like, oh, you did it too much, you're dead, and yeah, I'm gonna kill you. But these are things that then it can be kind of like, oh, that's getting up there, okay, let's talk about what that means for your progression and stuff like that. And it might preclude, like, for instance, like if you're using like Army of the Dead, and then you're also a healer and you're trying to heal people and stuff, maybe your healing doesn't work anymore, stuff like that. And maybe that stirs a plot that, you have to kind of find a way to cleanse yourself of that taint of death, so. Slicing up people on the altar. I agree. I think that will be a fun thing. And the Funcom, yep. You need it for blood souls. Will there be a practical reason to need to capture thralls and sacrifice them? Yeah. So I kind of mentioned it briefly when I was talking about the benches. These are things that still need to be ported over. I couldn't tell you exact timelines on those because I still got to dig into the functionality of them and stuff. But that is a thing that we could look at opening up as the same as getting souls, or what is it? Soul essences? To corrupt perks. I am very open to that. I think mainly my concern is that I want to make sure that like it makes sense for people to have those benches. You know, like so if you are a like sacrificial sorcerer, like you know, like that's some evil shit. So you know, I don't want you just like you know, the way that you sometimes see like thralling wheels out there, you know, and just like farming a bunch of people to you know like do that. I don't want to see you know sacrificial stones out in the wild just like farming Sumerians or whatever. But yeah, so as long as there's a way that we can kind of like, you know, do that in a limited way or whatever, then I'm open to that. Yeah, so that could be used for soul essences. And I know sacrificial blood, I believe, is also used in some of the summoning things, which is cool too. But again, we'll have to kind of revisit how summoning can work. I do have like things that at the moment, like that kind of function as like quick and dirty summoning. Oh, why do I not? Wait. I don't know why I can't cast anything right now. What? None of these things are showing up for me, and I cannot think. Oh, it's because my mana's all gone. One sec. Let me just give myself some mana. Yeah, so like there are quick and dirty like summoning things that I have for like for instance necromancers. This one's a you know nice easy one. Basically, yeah, I use some of the bone meal scraps and whatnot, and I receive a Legion Warrior, which is just you know placeable thrall, whatever. You can use it that way. That is a quick and dirty thing. I know it would be cooler to obviously like have animations and all that kind of stuff. So I will definitely look toward doing things like that. So yeah. Anyway, that's just for the sacrificial blood and stuff. Requirement of spells, yes, absolutely. Sacrificial blood could be used for things like that, summoning and whatnot. Funcom updates to the game sorcery impact things that you've ported over to work in RR. It shouldn't. It shouldn't, because in most cases, when in all like the spells that I've added, I've kind of cloned the blueprint. And so there is a separate version of that blueprint that I have in place. And if ever there was an update to it and it's like it does a different thing now, I shouldn't have to replace it, but I can. Like I can always just clone the blueprint again and reconnect it. It's not that hard. They may add more spells too and stuff like that, and if they do, I'll just make more blueprints and consumables of those. Certain schools, different schools use different mats. Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with like mats and stuff, because I think it's a little tricky to like kind of create like a one size fits all in terms of what mats you need or whatever. Because I think it's cool for people to kind of express themselves in that way also. Like, how do you weave the materials into your casting of the spell? I think that stuff's cool. Yeah, so yeah, I would invite you to look at those things as purely mechanical and kind of come up with something different. But, you know, just keep in mind that mats are required on some level, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, that's about that. And you will physically need to have them in your inventory, but people have all kinds of weird things in their inventory. I'm packing a friggin' dungeon in here right now, so. So yeah, just as long as you have things, you're good. And you will see that too show up here. If anything's in red, like you don't have bone meal or scraps or whatever, that's there. Yeah. Did I cover everything or no? Yeah, I guess we're just in the questions portion. I covered most of, I think, what I intended to go through. Also, wood to stone. I don't know, I just wanted to show this for some dumb reason. Because I felt like, I don't know, who's going to play a transmuter? I feel like people don't do that as much, but transmutation is cool. It could be a way to get mats. Who knows? You lose 50 wood, get 50 stone. Maybe that's a thing somebody wants to do. Either way, I programmed in sample things for all that. There's also things like Conjuration, which... so like you could do... Like I have one in there for like conjure an item. That's kind of like a template. Basically, you just cast a spell and you can receive an item. I would need to set that up, though, to be a specific item. So these are all kind of like limitations of RP Redux, which is why when we go through like the invocations, like the custom invocations stuff, that's a bit more of a process, and we want to make sure that that it all makes sense mechanically and that it can be programmed in. But I mean, I've done some neat things with some people's, custom invocations and stuff like that. Like, a thing that, changes the way you look and it gives you a status. And while you have that, you can, anyone else that comes into the scene, you can kind of like, run a check to see if they can tell if it's you or whatever. I don't know, like different stuff like that. There's a lot of flexibility, but there are also limitations. So yeah, just I aim to hopefully train more people on like how those things work, so that we can kind of like hammer out some cool mechanics for some new invocations and make some cool custom stuff. Yeah. Who else has got questions? I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna get a drink. Just some water. All right. Oh, I also promised that I would take away your corruption, so my apologies. There we go. Fill you right back up there. Cool. Also, thirst and hunger. Cool. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, some mats will expire. I think I've tried to be wary of that, and I would only put like something with like an expiration on like something more powerful, maybe, where it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is like, you need this special thing and it will only last this much and you need to get to a place. I don't know. That would be the only thing I could really conceive of using that for. But by and large, I don't think they are perishables or anything. So. But yeah. How long is this thing now? Sorry. I might stop the recording here just because, so that it's not too long. It's an hour and 7 minutes. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stop the recording unless there's any last questions that come in. I'll try and stick around a little bit and kind of like see if there's any others, but otherwise I think that's a pretty good overview. I mean, I didn't show off like all these spells or whatever. There are a bunch of cool ones. That's just those ones, but like there's other ones that are these. Detect resources is a weird one. I don't really understand how it works. Slow fall, mirror mark, lightning. These things may also get balance passes at some point. In cloning them and kind of like making our own versions of them, it allows us to balance them, to tweak the damage and things like that. Because if they are to play a role in PvP mechanically, there are things we'll have to look at. I think in the immediate, I would say in the immediate, like right now, I haven't altered any of them, any of the spells or whatever, but they work as is. If you were about to PvP someone and you said, hey, can I use sorcery? And they consent, whatever. And again, save logs, get screenshots, stuff like that, because if ever anything comes up. Then yeah, if they're open to it, cool. Sounds cool. Chief concerns both consent and role. It's already pretty frustrating, but perfectly reasonable that other players just decide when you can and can't. But if you also have to roll for stuff like spells, that would wouldn't require consent. It just seems like that's time. Yeah. And the other thing too is like, I mean, if you ever want something to succeed, like if you just want to like be like, I consent and let this work, yeah, totally, go for it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I mean, there are mechanics in place mostly because like even when you consent to something, it's still like, I mean, I would consent to the chance of being enchanted or something, right? I want the chance to, resist or whatever. Or maybe I don't. And then I'm just like, yeah, let's just let this work, either way. One other thing I can kind of mention too, I mean, in terms of things that don't fit like so easily into, did I give myself that? No, I didn't. Anyway, that don't fit like quite so easily into like a mechanical thing. In some cases, it's just like, you would use an ability and then it would just kind of show in the chat down here that this ability means that a person can extinguish a flame somewhere or something like that. So like with a prestidigitation type thing or whatever. It's not like a rolls, it's not you versus the other person or anything like that. It's just kind of like using that ability will show, hey, I use this ability as per the system. Like this is what I can do with it. I don't know. That's just, there are a lot of different ways to input these things, but. Save this for this, didn't really want to do, so you have a trait that isn't expressly sorcery, but also usually too much, requires special app, bending, hearing, spirit, combat, unnatural biology. You obviously need a special app. How does it manifest via the mechanics of the system you're making, which is going to be magic with non-magic flavor text. Without understanding fully the examples you're talking about, I believe that would fall into the realm of supernatural. Which is also a thing. So yeah. So like special apps, they're called special apps. They're not sorcerer apps because like, I'd like to branch out into other things potentially, and we'll see. But yeah, so something that's like a bit more like a supernatural thing, like say you have night vision or something like that. Night vision, that's something that's on there. That's a thing that you can program in. And basically, it would just give you a night sight potion or whatever when you use it. So that can be like a supernatural ability. Those things would still require special character apps, and then you could be set up with that. You wouldn't get the sorcery perk, you would get the supernatural perk. But yeah, anyway, so within that there is flexibility for other things, and in addition to that too, like I mean, oops, I keep doing that. Like this is just sorcery, but like what I'd like to try and do, because like there's that thing right now at the beginning where you kind of like pick a few perks that would give you what do you call it, like lock picking or whatever else, right? I kind of want to factor more of those things into it, like the skill things, whatever. Right now it's like a pretty simple implementation. It's just like, okay, you get a bonus of +1 to something. It's mostly just because like, okay, I want there to be like a balance of like, okay, if you're a sorcerer and you spend your perks in sorcery, cool, but other people can spend their perks in other things that round out their characters in more interesting ways. And I want to flesh that out as well. That's just a thing, I don't know, just off the top of my head that I've also been working on. Yeah. Anyway, though. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll stick around for questions and stuff like that. Okay. All right. 1 sec.